At the homemaker, cooking from scratch can be a challenge, and especially at dinner time. But I really feel at the most at home when I just throw the recipes aside and just get creative with what I have on hand. It's also a lot more sustainable this way and a productive way to keep waste down in my kitchen. This is a lot easier to do with a little inspiration. So enjoy these meal ideas and get ready to have fun in your kitchen again. I know I sure do. All right, so our first meal is going to be a skillet of sorts, but also kind of like meatloaf patties. Nothing I make ever really has much of a name because I'm just throwing things together that we have already on hand and just making it up as I go. But I'm basically going to be slicing up these red onions and these mushrooms, throwing them in the pan. I'm going to add some fresh garlic and just get all those under the patties so that the meat cooks and just hydrates the veggies and just gets all of those flavors working together to make a delicious meal. So I definitely had my decision made for me when I got these mushrooms at the store. I had a grocery pickup and my shopper was not real on it that day and gave me mushrooms that were pretty much needed to be used that day, and we didn't use them that day. So I chose to use them this evening and get on that before we wasted anything. So I've got the fresh garlic here. If you're of the impression that garlic is delicious and should be utilized in everything, you can easily use, 10 cloves or whatever. We use a lot of cloves of garlic, so we definitely did that here. There's just not too much garlic in a meal for us. And I'm just doing kind of a rough chop on these mushrooms since they're going to be in there for about 20 or 25 minutes. I didn't want to make them too small. We don't mind mushy mushrooms, but I wanted them to hold their shape just a tad. So we had the 2 pounds of meat here, the ground beef. It had been in the fridge most of the week, so I wanted to go ahead and utilize that. We got this particular meat from a local farm. They were having a special where you got the pounds a little bit cheaper per pound if you got several pounds of ground beef in bulk, and we did that. And come to find out, it wasn't really the best meat. It was 100% grass fed, but it was just a little too, I don't know. It didn't taste like what I've gotten before, so I probably won't be using that farm again. Just a little bit lean for our taste, and I've gotten other farm meat that's been delicious, so it's fine. We still use it, and I just kind of use it in these types of things where I'm adding other flavors and other textures, and it's easy to disguise. So something with sourdough breadcrumbs, especially if I'm using them in like a meatloaf type thing, is I kind of cheat. I don't actually toast the breadcrumbs. I just chop them up pretty small and just let the texture be what it is. It saves a lot of time, and I find that I always forget to toast these types of things ahead of time. So it's worked out to my favor. We don't really tell much of a difference, and it just bulks up the meal a little bit and adds more flavor. So we do that. And here are the patties. I go ahead and add about a cup, maybe a cup and a half of chicken broth, just to allow those veggies to have a little broth to kind of cook in and soften easily. And then I'm just adding some asparagus that I'm throwing in rather aggressively. I have no idea why. But we served it with asparagus. And here they are. This is after about, I believe, 25 minutes on 375. So we did that, and we were happy with the internal temp of these. And this is kind of like a little difficult. I had to pour the juice that was under them into this pot and kind of make like a quick roux, which was totally worth it because we wanted the gravy, but kind of an extra step that you might not necessarily want to do. But I mean, look at this gravy pour coming up. It's 100% worth it, and definitely just brought the meal together. If I had had a little bit extra time, I would have thrown in some fresh herbs. Also, if I had actually had fresh herbs on hand, that would have been very helpful. But our mini, mini, mini garden has ceased to exist for the season, so we didn't have those. All right, and this next meal was a few days after that meal, and we had had leftovers of the meatloaf patties like once and just kind of ended up eating other things. So I had quite a bit of it still on hand and needed to utilize it. And I was just kind of scrolling through Pinterest. Like, I have all these same staples in my kitchen, and we don't feel like we eat the same thing all the time, but sometimes you kind of just need to scan Pinterest just to, give you a little inspiration. So I saw a chili recipe, which I actually didn't click through to, so I'm sure that one's good too. But I was like, chili, of course, I can totally utilize this in chili. So we used those patties and the mushroom mixture, and I put all of it in the Instant Pot, and it was totally fine. It's amazing how it had herbs and, all kinds of different flavors in there, but I added it to the chili and just added our chili spices and ingredients in the Instant Pot, and it had enough time to just really develop all the flavors since it was in the Instant Pot. And it turned out so good. We were really pleased. That's something that I do with late afternoon cooking when I don't necessarily plan ahead too much, or it's been a busy day and just haven't gotten to things. Is I'll utilize the Instant Pot. It just really is something I go to every day, every other day. And it just allows you to get all that flavor without having to actually think ahead and have a pot of chili simmering on the stove all day. So we're of the opinion that chili always tastes better the second day, but starting it in the Instant Pot and just getting those flavors to really cook together does wonders. So with this particular one, I had a jar of, it's about 2 cups in there. Maybe a little bit more. And I had that already in the fridge. It was like partially frozen, but I was able to get it through that little hole in the top. So went and threw that in along with the leftovers. I had a couple cans of Rotel that I just feel like adds the best flavor. It's probably not the best. I haven't even looked at the ingredient on the can, and I probably won't because I enjoy adding Rotel to these types of dishes. So it's just a Mexican chili vibe to me. We also added, chili powder, smoked paprika, garlic powder, salt, onion powder, and cumin. Cumin's a big one. I just added those all in just kind of liberally, as you see there. I don't know if you guys are more sensitive to spices. You might want to measure that. But I just throw it in there and I'm like, it'll be fine. And we kind of, if it's a little spicy for the kids, we'll just add some sour cream because that always makes everything better for me. I did add some corn here. Not really your typical chili, but it just kind of like the creaminess that it adds. And these beans were actually black beans that I had soaked a few days back and cooked, and we just used a little bit of them for some taco bowls. So I had several leftovers, so that worked out for the chili as well. And I had about 3/4 of a block of cream cheese left, so threw that in for good measure too, and finished it off with a little bit more water, like a couple cups, just to make sure it had plenty of juice to get on in there and cook up good. So I just give this a little mix and seal it, and I figured I would give it about 30 minutes to cook and see how that did. I was going to let it go as long as I could before it was time for dinner, and I think I actually ended up having about 40 minutes of it just sitting there on low, which is totally fine. To me, the more the better. It came out great. It was the perfect consistency for us. We served it with the blue corn tortilla chips. Those are our favorite. We get them from Aldi. They're the best quality we can get locally, so we are of the 80-20 rule. And I added some raw cheese to the top and sour cream like I mentioned, and it was a hit. All right, we had a particularly fun day, and I once again did not really prepare much for dinner, but I knew what we would probably have, so I did remember to feed my starter ahead of time, which was a big save. I just feed a lot of the discard, and it gives me plenty for just the quick pizzas later on. We do make a regular sourdough pizza crust that is our favorite, but this is definitely perfect for in a pinch. You just have to have a lot of discard on hand to be able to do it. So if you can do that, this is an easy one to throw together. So we are going to do discard pizzas tonight. We do a few different types. I usually just kind of use what we do have on hand. I always keep pepperoni and marinara sauce from Aldi, and our favorite raw cheddar from Azure Standard. That is absolutely the best part of the pizza. So we try to keep that on hand. You see me stealing some right there. So for the kids, we do just a basic cheese pizza with marinara, and my husband likes more of a traditional style, like a loaded pizza basically, or supreme, I guess you would call it. So we had some peppers and onions and mushrooms, and of course our cheese there. I did have the pepperonis on hand as well. And those peppers were from the store except for that green one. So I'm sure you can tell the difference in it being garden grown. It was one of our last ones that we had just picked. The kids were begging to pick it because we don't really get that many peppers since we just had like 1 or 2 pepper plants. So when one's ready to go, I start hearing it from them. I'm like, you know what? Go pick the pepper. We'll use it tonight. So we picked the pepper. Yeah, just getting these sliced up here. I always saute my veggies for pizza. I do not like raw veggies on pizza. That just seems like a crime to me. This is not a veggie tray. So we saute those up, and it just completely elevates the meal. And the kids will actually eat the veggies like this. So if they're feeling adventurous, we'll throw some veggies on their side as well. But with these, I'm just going to saute them up. Like I said, I'm adding mushrooms there and just some seasoning, getting it all sauteed. And one of the things that I feel like is the best part of a pizza night like this is just how relaxing it can be in the kitchen, because I feel like, when you do from scratch cooking, you kind of got to enjoy it because you are in the kitchen a lot. That's just a fact. So having these meals like this that are memorized, they're just easy, you can't really go wrong. You just are going through the little therapy of dicing veggies and shredding cheese. It is for me, at least. I enjoy it. And just letting all those flavors work and just getting to talk to your family and just enjoy yourself. So this is one of those meals for us. And the bacon is going to be going on mine and my husband's pizza. So I'm kind of more of a weird pizza person. I don't tend to love a marinara and cheese type pizza. It just doesn't excite me for whatever reason. It's still good, but I prefer a marinara-less pizza. For mine, a lot of times I'll use bacon, fig preserves, or some type of sweetness. Like I love the sweetness with the salty and a little bit of a tang. So depending on what we have on hand, that does change each time. But this particular time I did bacon and the veggies and feta cheese, raw cheddar, and the fig preserves on the base of it. And spoiler alert, it was incredible. So definitely give that a try if you're into that as well. But yeah, we just are here and going to be enjoying this evening. It's our little Friday night here. So see all that sourdough starter I had? I was pretty proud of myself. Wanted to mention here that I actually fed my starter a little too much flour this time. It was a tad bit thick, so here I have to add more. So maybe just something to keep in mind. I am not a stickler on anything sourdough. I just don't think it has to be as complicated as everyone seems to make it. And it usually just works out fine because even here, it's a little thick, but we made it work and it tasted perfectly fine. So I would keep a little bit more of a 50-50 ratio on your flour and water when you feed it for pizza dough so that it just kind of spreads a little bit more evenly. So I just topped that one with garlic powder and salt and pepper and olive oil. Just let it bake up a little bit, and about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, when it starts kind of coming away from the sides there. And here it's ready for my toppings. This one that I'm putting in is the cheese one for the kids. And I wasn't really thinking when I put that in because I was going to do only half with cheese and half with the mushrooms and the onions and all that pepper blend with some pepperoni for my husband because he usually splits my pizza with me and then a pizza with the boys. So I went ahead and just decided, oh well, we'll just throw it on there midway through. So I'm just adding everything to mine. There's the cheddar and the feta. Such a good decision with the perfect little tang. It doesn't really melt on it, but like it doesn't matter. The regular cheddar melts well, so it sticks to it and everything. So I did add another little pizza. I'm getting the pan preheated there. I just went ahead and I had extra starter, so I was like, well, we'll just throw another little cheese pizza together. And we didn't end up using it, so we just ate it later on, which made for a quick little breakfast, or I'm sorry, lunch. We would eat pizza for breakfast too. We'd be totally fine with that. So these are all ready now, but this is where I'm getting that small one started, and I put like way too much starter in there, so it's a pretty thick base. So if you like more of a thick crust style, you can do that as well. We tend to like the thinner style, so I try to keep it thin enough to where it's, tasty like that, but not too thin to where, our ingredients are going to make it too heavy to be able to hold. So here's where I'm just adding those veggies in so that my husband can have his side, and he is not a just cheese pizza kind of guy. He would eat any pizza any day of the week, but I try to make it how he likes it. So here's mine. It was delightful, and you can see how the edges kind of peel up on that side, so it just slides right out of the pan, and it was so tasty. All right, so our last meal is a staple for sure. We do usually a couple of whole chickens. Wow, whole chickens each week, just to be able to have meat on hand already for quick lunches like chicken salad or barbecue sandwiches, or just using the chicken, with some veggies or something, like just any way we need to. It's totally fine, and it's very helpful to have. So we do usually one in the Instant Pot for picking meat off of, and then a whole chicken for like a dinner where we're seasoning it more heavily, and I'm adding the veggies here. So this is basically like a one pot type dinner or one dish dinner, whatever you want to call it, with just a little bit of prep here. It's easy to just pull together. You can see I'm being able to do it with a baby on my hip, but I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be slicing an onion with a baby on my hip. So my husband rescued me there so that I could get this into the oven. So you just do want to give yourself a good, hour and a half before dinner, hour, because it does take about an hour to cook from beginning to end. But yeah, I'm just getting these sweet potatoes diced up. I get them peeled, and I do like to dice them fairly small so they can kind of fit in the dish better and really get submerged by the broth the best that way. I'm also going to add a red onion, and I do like an herb blend. The herbs stay Provence on this, but other than that, just pretty much like a salt and pepper, and I do pats of butter under the skin. You'll see in another shot that those pats of butter under the skin a little better. See what I'm talking about? There we go. It's just kind of allows the moisture to stay inside. It makes it a little bit more flavorful to us. So that's what we do. But yeah, I'll just add some salt and pepper and garlic powder and herbes de Provence, and then one secret ingredient that isn't really secret, but we'll add maple syrup to the top of it. And we love our maple syrup around here. You wouldn't think we would have it at dinner time as well, but here we are. And it happens to be one of my favorites. So another different ones that we'll do will be like more of a Mexican style, where we'll do cumin and chili powder and smoked paprika and just all of those usuals that are good for Mexican type dishes, and maybe serve it with some kind of salad or mashed potatoes and some I don't know, just all kind of, we do a lot of the same types of things, but changing the spices and seasonings like that is going to make it feel like a different dinner, which it does every time, because this kind of has that subtle sweetness to it, and it's just incredible. But then, the spice of the Mexican can pair well with so many other things and just feel like a completely different meal. We'll also do a more herb-based chicken with like herbes de Provence, some parsley, some Italian pepper. No, I'm sorry, not Italian pepper, some Italian seasoning, and sometimes the basil, which we actually had basil from our garden this year. It's been so flavorful to dry the basil, and that is the first time we've ever done that this year, so that was fun to do. So it's a lot more flavorful that way. So we will be doing that again. Right now you'll see here I'm adding a couple cups of water to make a broth, which is perfectly acceptable because you are cooking the chicken in it and it basically turns into a chicken broth. But I love adding bone broth to it in the beginning. It just gets even more flavorful, but we didn't have that, so this worked perfectly on a pinch. So I'm taking out here at that 45-minute mark, and the juice is still coming out a little pink in between the leg and the breast, which is what we always check for. So I figure, okay, it needs about 15 more minutes. Usually that'll work. It's about a 4.5 to 5 pound chicken. So that's usually what it is. And I'm basically just basting the chicken, taking the juices in the spoon and just kind of dishing them over the chicken, rehydrating that skin a little bit, and then it'll get crispy again, just more flavorful that way, and pressing the veggies down into the broth. So you'll see kind of when it comes out, some of the veggies on the top are a little crispy and haven't fully cooked through since they've been exposed to the heat. So I just kind of push those back in there, and in that 15 minutes it takes to cook, they are perfect. And there you have it, guys. 1 hour and all in one dish. Tasted wonderful, and we served it with some leftover rice we had from the previous night, and it was just wonderfully nourishing for our bodies. So thanks for coming, guys. We've got a video next week all about how I prep for a week of scratch cooking. We hope to see you then. Thanks.